Hello and welcome to Time About the Movies Flashback. We've got a double weekend for you this time around. We're taking a look at the 4 films of both January 23rd and January 16th, 1987. I did this mostly because there's only one movie that came out on the 23rd and 3 films on the 16th, so combine it together, there you go. Let's take a look at that one film to start us off here, and that is Terry O'Quinn. Long before he was Lock on Lost, he was a serial killer stepfather in The Stepfather.
To look like somebody else.
I have beautiful friends. I have a wonderful new family.
Now he blends in with everybody else.
If he wasn't here, my mom and I would be all right.
But sooner or later,
Hi, honey.
he'll leave his signature behind.
He's just some crazy creep. Stop it!
Wait a minute. Who am I here?
The Stepfather. The Shocking Truth. Rated R.
Now playing at a theater near you.
Now, see, if Dylan Walsh had been more like Terry O'Quinn in this movie, that 2009 remake would have actually been good. But then again, it's a Screen Gems remake. Of course, they're not going to make a good movie off of that, good remake off of this film. Which this one is a fun, over-the-top horror film, and yeah, it's described as a horror film. But that scene in particular, where Terry O'Quinn has literally killed so many people that he has no idea who he's even playing anymore. That made me really appreciate this movie a whole lot more. So Terry O'Quinn stars as an identity-assuming serial killer who marries a widow with a teenage daughter. Having killed his previous family and changed his identity, his murderous tendencies continue after his stepdaughter becomes suspicious of him. It's based on the life of mass murderer John List, although the plot is more commonly associated with slasher films of the era. This was written by Donald E. Westlake, who has actually been notable for a couple of movies we've talked about on this show. He was one of the main focus for the Grifters. He actually wrote the script for the Grifters. He also did Payback with Mel Gibson. He did What's the Worst That Could Happen. So he has made a lot of notable movies that we've talked about on the show. And this one in particular also has the Brian Garfield, who wrote Death Wish. So there is a lot of notable names in here. David Lowery is also another name that we've talked about in several other movie reviews. He's done a lot of stuff you might be familiar with. Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. He wrote Tom and Huck, Lakeview Terrace, Obsessed, and Money Train. Not a lot of great stuff overall. I'm looking at this list here. Mostly garbage stuff. Stuff we've talked about on here that's not that great. And it makes sense that he wrote stuff like Obsessed and Lakeview Terrace, because this is definitely a movie that's straight down into that same type of movie you expect for a film like this. But like I said, man, this was made at a time when these movies in particular were the norm, and most critics were not going to like it per se for obvious reasons, but people knew exactly what they were going into, and they went along for the ride. And yeah, this movie is pretty fun with Terry O'Quinn knocking it out of the park. I mean, not only is he terrifying as hell, but like I said, he has those great funny moments in there where he has no idea what family he's associated with right now. The moment I watched this movie and I fell in love with it was when that first time he goes like, wait, who am I playing this time around? It's just like I laughed my ass off the first time I saw that. It's just like, okay, I got to give you credit for that. That's actually pretty good. So it does give it a little bit of a unique turn compared to the other slasher movies of the time period. I mean, it is a film that is still kind of ridiculous for its own good, but a fun kind of ridiculous. It's a film that is very much a film that is a cult film. And directed by a guy that would later go on to make some successful movies. You know, this is the guy that did True Believer in 1989, but he's more well-known for stuff like Sleeping with the Enemy, The Good Son, and the aforementioned Money Train. But, like I said, a fun movie overall. Not a great film overall, but it is what it is. It delivers on what it promises, and it's probably one of the more notable, interesting, unique turns on the slasher film genre. And Terry O'Quinn, like I said, knocks it out of the park. You also got Jill Sholin playing the daughter, and also Shelley Hack, or as Cotton Hill likes to call her, our King of the Hill. It's a Shelley Hack! Because when they're watching Charlie's Angels on TV, and, you know, they have no idea that it's actually one of the later episodes. Cotton just goes like, it's a Shelley Hack! Apparently, the last seasons of Charlie's Angels were not that great to begin with, but you get the idea here. But overall, yeah, pretty fun movie overall. It is what it is. Take it for what it is, and you have a good time with it. So that is the one movie for January 23rd. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the 3 films for the 16th, starting with Richard Pryor's latest film, and that is Critical Condition.
Countless lives rely on one man.
I've got to scrub up. Rock and roll, let's go! Let's go heal those suckers. When the cast is real big, the bone sets harder.
No wonder he gets the big bucks.
Richard Pryor.
Ouch! That's a great jobs in the world. We can park anywhere we want.
is turning every emergency
Not this again.
No.
into a critical condition.
You tried a glass of fruit juice?
Rated R. Starts Friday, January 16th at a theater near you.
Or a suitable title for this would be Richard Pryor's film career going down the toilet, because, yeah, this was around the time when his film career was kind of taking a nosedive, and he was kind of being overshadowed by Eddie Murphy, who had just put out the Golden Child but a couple weeks prior to this, which was the much more successful movie. This film in particular, Richard Pryor plays Kevin Leland, who's a con man who is framed for a jewel robbery. To escape custody, he fakes insanity before a judge and then poses as a surgeon at a local hospital where he switches places with the administrator Arthur Chambers, played by Joe Mantegna. During a flood and power outage that follows, Kevin takes charge of the hospital and tries to maintain some orders in his unorthodox way, aka slapstick comedy for the sake of slapstick comedy that really is not that funny. And yeah, this is the type of movie that would clearly be more suitable for a sitcom rather than a movie. And even with somebody like Richard Pryor, who can make stuff like this work for what it is, this is really not his cup of tea here. He is really just slouching along here. A lot of people are slouching along in this movie. Rachel Tickerton from Total Recall, Ruben Blades, as I mentioned, Joe Mantegna, Sylvia Miles, Randall Tex Cobb, Bob Saget, this is one of his early film roles, John Polito, Garrett Morris. This is not a very good film. Also, Wesley Snipes, this was actually one of his earliest film performances, playing an ambulance driver. And I think what really hurts it the most is that this is Michael Apted, and this is not a bad director. He's made a lot of good stuff. And to see even him kind of half-assing it, really is kind of a bummer, because the guy who's made a lot of good movies, stuff we've talked about on this show before. He's done great stuff like Blink, he did Nell, The World Is Not Enough, you know. He has made Gorillas in the Mist, Class Action, a lot of good stuff, and you'd think that he would put his A-game to this, but there's clearly a reason why this was released in January, because studios saw it, they realized, oh shit, this thing's not going to sell to people, so just dump it out there, and we can just market it as a hit there. And yeah, it did become a hit, but it didn't make a ton of money overall. And like I said, this was kind of Richard Pryor entering the twilight of his career, because everything he make after this really wasn't as successful as it could have been. I mean, really, this movie, he also did Moving, which was not a success. What's another one he did? See No Evil, Hear No Evil was not that great. Neither was Another You. Harlem Nights I don't think was as bad as most people made it out to be. That was probably the last decent thing he was in. But yeah, this was kind of the downward spiral beginning of his career as a film star. And yeah, this thing isn't as good as it should have been. It should have been so much better than it actually was, but no, not so much. So anyway, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is a drama with Steve Guttenberg, which I did not know until I saw the trailer for this, The Bedroom Window.
A violent crime. Let's speak with the theater. I'll tell them what you saw. Or I'll tell them what I saw. But you no witness. Mr. Lambert got a good look at the map. You did? Oh, I would not. And nothing is what it appears to be. It looks like they're wondering if maybe I can show up here. The Bedroom Window, rated R, starts tomorrow at theaters everywhere.
So that's not only the real odd thing about that Steve Guttenberg's in a serious drama, but this is directed by Curtis Hanson. You know, this is actually, I think, one of his earliest film directing roles. You know, before this he did Losing It, and he also did The Little Dragons and Sweet Kill. This was still very much early on in his career. And talk about a movie where you really cannot expect you really see more. You really don't see more than you're expecting to see when you watch this, because, yeah, this is kind of an odd movie on so many levels, because, one, yeah, Steve Guttenberg's mostly known for his comedy roles, and seeing him tackle a drama like this, I never even knew about this until I looked up the research on this, but it stars Steve Guttenberg, who's having an affair with his boss's wife, played by Isabel Hubbard, and which leads to a dangerous web of lies and mystery. She witnesses an attack on a woman from Terry's apartment window, but to protect her, Terry falsely claims he saw it himself, and escalates into nightmare. And you have Elizabeth McGovern also in here as well, produced by Dino De Laurentiis. And yeah, I really did not know too much about this. And look at the cast here. Carl Lumbly's in here, Wallace Shawn, you know, playing the attorney for Carl Henderson, played by Brad Greenquist. Yeah, like I said, I really do not know too much about this. I just thought it was kind of interesting when I saw Steve Guttenberg's name attached to it, a dramatic role, in a film that really does sound like a mix between a Brian De Palma modern-day movie modern day thriller like A Dress to Kill or Dress to Kill or Body Double, mixed in with a little bit of Rear Window, which is something that sounds very fascinating, especially from a director like Curtis Hanson, who's proven time and time again he can make a lot of good movies. 8 Mile, In Her Shoes, Wonder Boys, LA Confidential. So this could be something that actually could be pretty interesting and cool to see. Like I said, I haven't seen it before. I didn't even know much about it until I did the research on this, but I'm kind of tempted to check it out. I mean, this seems like a movie that's primed for like a Kino Lorber, Shout Factory, Mill Creek release, and I'm sure there's one out there, but if there isn't, I'll try to find it on there. I'm kind of curious now. I want to see if Steve Guttenberg has the chops to do like a dramatic role in here. And supposedly it was producer Dino Laurentis who said, get Guttenberg for the leading role because he demonstrated enthusiasm for the part, despite not being the initial pick for Curtis Hanson. But it seems like a captivating film overall, and I'm kind of curious to check it out, so maybe I'll check it out one day. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie that we have here, and that is Rutger Hauer starring in Wanted, Dead or Alive.
30 years ago, Steve McQueen exploded across the screen as bounty hunter Josh Randall. Today, that legend continues. Rutger Hauer as Nick Randall takes over the family business. Why would you need me?
We need the best.
And business is booming. Rutger Hauer. Wanted, Dead or Alive. Rated R.
Coming soon. Consult your local newspaper for showtimes.
Or as John Bon Jovi would probably say, I'm wanted, wanted, dead or alive. I sincerely apologize for that. But then again, I'm doing more justice to the song Wanted, Dead or Alive than this does to the TV series that this thing is proclaiming to be related to that, because the show they're talking about was a 1958 show that was a Western starring Steve McQueen as bounty hunter Josh Randall. And the show was a black and white spin-off of a show called Tracktown, which was a show starring Robert Culp, I Spy, and it made Steve McQueen known for the concept of cool and entertainment, a television star. He later became the first TV star to cross over into comparable status on the big screen. So that was a movie that was a show that kind of introduced Steve McQueen to the world. But yeah, it was a Western back in the day, and yet someone at New World Pictures said, we can do the exact same thing, but let's make it a modern-day, gritty action film, and let's get the guy from Blade Runner, the villain from Blade Runner and Nighthawks to star in it, which could be interesting, but it's not. It's literally a definition of a, hey, let's take a movie that's based off of a popular TV series from the past, and just use the title for our movie that has probably one of the more generic titles, probably a generic action movie, but hey, people know what Wanted, Dead or Alive is. And really, do you expect anything less from the same director that gave us such masterpieces as Poltergeist 3 and Lisa? Yeah, I didn't think so. Wanted, Dead or Alive. Nick Randall, played by Rutger Hauer, is a Los Angeles-based bounty hunter and ex-CIA operative who was asked by a former co-worker, played by Robert Guillaume, to help track down terrorist Malik Al-Rahman, played by Gene Simmons, who bombed a movie theater and later planned to release gas from a chemical plant similar to the Bhopal disaster, which I know nothing about because I wasn't alive when that happened. However, Al-Rahim is also looking for Randall, and Randall's employee who tells him where to find Randall. This results in the death of his best friend, Sergeant Danny Quint, played by William Russ, and his girlfriend, Terry, played by Mel Harris, eventually forcing a showdown on the waterfront. Again, clearly this was not a film that was based off the Steve McQueen TV show. This was a movie that was probably a generic action movie, and someone said, what if we can get the rights to the title of Wanted, Dead or Alive? Let's do that. And yeah, this is the end result of that. A movie that I guarantee you probably has nothing to do with the TV show and has been largely forgotten for obvious reasons. I've never seen this movie, but never even saw the original TV series, but I'm guaranteeing you that as badass as Rutger Hauer can be, I don't think it's enough to save this movie in general. I mean, this thing seems like it's kind of lame overall, and something where it's just like I said, generic action movie, but they took the name because, hey, notable name here, and yeah, I really don't think this thing is that good, and you never hear anybody talk about it per se. I mean, it kind of came and went. You never heard any critics talking about it. You never hear anybody even saying, like, the critics were wrong back then. You gotta check this movie out, and no. nobody really, I don't think, ever really looks at this movie and says, yeah, this was that good. This was actually that good of a movie. I think no. I don't think that was the case. If I had to say that Disorderly is the 1987 comedy with the Fat Boys and their comparisons to the Three Stooges at least made more sense than this does, we got a problem here. We have a real big problem here, so that's all I got for you on Wanted Dead or Alive, honestly. And thus, with all that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies Flashback today. Next time around, we take a look at the final 2 weeks of 1987, January 9th and January 2nd, by looking at Assassination, The Kindred, Iron Warrior, and then on January 2nd, the list of films, we have Wisdom with Emilio Estevez, and also Witchboard. So those 5 movies we'll take a look at next time around as we wrap 1987 out. And I don't know when I'm going to get to an 87 Leftovers episode, honestly, but might be the week after that. I'd have to check my schedule again, but thank you so much for watching this, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe button, notification button, and don't forget to check out the playlist as well as the previous episodes. So, with all that said, I will see you guys next time. Until then, take care.